Hey everyone, and welcome back. My name is Colton. I am your Maximo technical specialist here at IBM. And today we have a very exciting topic, which is Maximo Scheduler that I'm going to be walking you through all today. So we'll start off with a high-level overview of what are the different components, and then we're going to jump right into a demo. And I'm going to walk you guys through how to set up Scheduler and walk you through the different components that our clients use most often when using Maximo. And the real key purpose, just to start off with the high level overview before we go into the demo, is Maximo Scheduler is really created to ensure that you're optimizing allocating work to your teams. And that includes taking into the fact of, what are their skill sets? What's their availability? And ensuring the right work's getting to the right person at the right time. And that's really the key component of Scheduler. And we have hundreds, if not thousands, of clients using it today to optimize their schedule and improve overall productivity. And that is the key part of Maximo Scheduler. So with that, let's jump into the individual components. Now, there's four key applications we're going to talk through today with Scheduler. And the first is probably the most simplistic scheduling application we have. It's a tabular view of your work list, the labors, the crews that you're going to assign to, and it's as easy as clicking the work and double clicking the labor resources based on their availability, and you're good to go. And so this is the first application. It's called Assignment Manager within Maximo. And what we can do here, and you'll see as part of the demo, is what we're going to have is you're going to open up the application. And the first thing you're going to see is a list of all the work. Here you see where I filtered based off of priority of the work. So here we just see the high priority work orders. They're in red because that's how I personally color coded it. And down below, we have the resources that are available to do the work. So it's as simple as clicking the work that needs to be done, allocating it to resources by double clicking on their availability, and you're good to go. It's as simple as that. And this is a very popular tool used across most of our clients today. The second application we'll walk you through is where we kind of transition from a tabular view to more of a graphical view where you can begin to assign tasks not only based off of the work and the resources available, but also based off of the dependencies they have to one another, such as the individual tasks as part of a work order package. Maybe it's child work orders of, kind of that overall bigger package that you guys have, where you're ensuring that the work is done in the right order. And so this is the second application. It's really for the here and now work that needs to be scheduled, not necessarily over longer periods of time. And this is a tool that's really focused on supervisors and dispatchers. So being able to allocate the work in a graphical view. And once that work view has been defined is where we can then drag and drop the individual tasks and work orders to the appropriate resource. And this is where you're going to see on the graphical assignments over in the top part of the assignments, you're going to see all that unscheduled work in orange. Down below in green, you're going to see the work that's been assigned. Purple is usually because they are sick or out of office. And so we take into account those resources availabilities. And it's very, very easy to define, okay, this person's out this week at this time for training, sickness, or even vacation. And along with that, as we go through this demonstration, you'll also see Maximo has the capability in the background to actually flag work in the case that it's signed to a resource who doesn't have the qualifications, or maybe it's outside their shift. And that's what you're seeing in yellow there. So graphical assignment is our next step away from tabular into more of a graphical view for the here and now work. And then lastly, within graphical assignment, as the second application we're covering, is the dispatching. Now, this is a really critical application for a lot of our clients today, is not only understanding from a work view and assignments view, but also a dispatching view. How do we optimize the routes that our technicians and our team members take in order to get the work completed? So here you can see in the middle my record where I have two assigned tasks, and I want to assign a third task to myself. We see in orange that there's the unassigned task, and it may be optimal to go from the first task to here to the last task that we see. Maximo can optimize all of this for us, and it can do so based off of the priority of the work and other factors. And it can also account for the time it takes to get from one location to another. So if you see, and maybe I can like zoom in a little bit on that little black box that you see here, Maximo automatically calculates based off of the map the time it takes to get into each individual task. So we're not cramming a lot of work in when in reality it's going to going to take more time to get to that location, which ultimately impacts our compliance, right? So that's something that we do with graphical assignment is we also have a dispatching tab for our dispatchers. So far we've covered two of the applications. We covered asset assignments manager. We covered graphical assignments. So now we're going to take it a step further and go into graphical work week. This is where we can then begin to plan in advance. We can look at work across this week, next week. But what's really important about this part of our scheduling applications is that we can have a one-stop shop to understand what work and tasks need to be completed. For our work orders, you'll see usually like a little wrench next to it. For our work tasks, you'll see like a little icon that's like a clipboard. But you're going to see all of those individual statuses listed out. You're going to see the start time, end date, the priority of the work, the location. And then over on the right-hand side, you're going to see how we've allocated this work across the week. We can immediately see within an instant that there's work that maybe needs to be split up to multiple days, or maybe we can allocate that to resource that additional. Maybe we can break this up a little bit into multiple parts in which gets assigned for the same day, really depending on the dependency of that work. Down below on the left-hand side, we have the overall resources available to do the work. And we have a nice little interface to show based off of their allocation for the week, what percentage they're at, what their skill levels are, what shift, work location. And over on the right-hand side is where the magic happens, where we can easily look at their availability across that week. We can see those who are out because they're sick. We even see some that have been over allocated work that we need to take a look at. And down below, we can also filter this by the crew level, but in the middle, mostly you're seeing here is the labor and resource availability. And it's as simple as clicking what work you want to assign, double clicking the resource availability, and you have your assignment. It's as simple as that. As I mentioned before, if you're trying to assign work like this electrician work order to someone who's not skilled in this area, that you would need somebody who has the right qualifications, Maximo is going to flag that and send you a message saying, hey, you need to check this out. And we're going to show that in the demo too. And the last application, so we've kind of covered the here and now. We've covered, I want to create work over several weeks. Now let's look at what would we do if we wanted to schedule even at a higher view. Maybe it's a large construction project, or maybe we have a large work package that we're looking at across multiple different months. Graphical Scheduler is your application for this, and where you can easily look at the work that needs to be completed, its status. You can see how it's been laid out over a long period of time. Down below, you can see the individual crafts. And most importantly, out of all of this is the resource leveling. So looking across all of these to ensure that you're optimizing your compliance is to then see, okay, have we over allocated, under allocated, and how do we optimize the schedule? And so this is something typically taken on by like a planner or your schedulers to define these larger scale projects. One of the key parts of this application is not beyond just the graphical interfaces that we've seen a lot up until this point, but also being able to create different what if scenarios. So here I created a schedule, but I kind of want to compare it to a different schedule that we have that's kind of optimized in a different way, being able to understand the cost difference, costing over this project, what was the labor cost, the material, the maybe it's an external vendor that we're or contractors that we're bringing into this picture as well. What are some of the tools that we'll need and the overall cost of this project, and being able to compare across different scenarios. And then lastly, just importantly, being able to look at our plan versus actuals as this project is moving forward and seeing what our compliance levels are at. And the last thing, we won't have this as part of this demo, but I'll most likely create a different video for this. But how do we leverage machine learning to optimize and automate a lot of these schedules for us? Maximo has that capability, and many clients have been using different ways like automation scripts in Maximo to automate the planning of the work and the assignments of work. But you can go beyond that with a lot of these schedules by setting parameters and giving Maximo an understanding. I want you to base this optimization model that you're going to run against my schedules based off of their skill, the priority of the work zone, and a lot of other factors that you can play in. And with the click of the button, you can let Maximo run its engine, and then it'll pump out an optimized schedule for you in which you can look at, see, okay, are there any alerts associated with this schedule, or is this an optimized path that our team should be taking to get the work completed? Maximo has that capability. So I know that was a lot. We covered four of the key applications that we have in Scheduler, along with some of the advanced capabilities that are rolled out with Maximo today. But with that, let's jump right into the demo. Let's jump into the demonstration where I'm going to be walking you through all four of those key scheduling capabilities, including Assignment Manager, which, if you remember, was the simple tabular view for assigning work to available resources. Graphical Assignment, which is for the here and now scheduling. Graphical Work Week, which is looking at that work week along with weeks in advance. And Graphical Scheduler for the long-term planning. So with that, let's jump into Assignment Manager, which, as I mentioned, was that simple tabular view for assigning work to available resources. So when you log in, you're going to see a very similar dashboard, except it's going to have your specific key performance indicators. Everyone who logs in is going to have their own interface that looks similar to this. And over on the left-hand side is when we can begin to navigate to the application you want to use, which in this case, team, you're most likely not going to see all of these applications. You're most likely to see ones you have permission to use. So don't get intimidated by all these. I have admin privileges. But here, let's go ahead and type in the application or module that we want to open up, and it'll automatically navigate us to it. So here is our assignments manager. Now, this is a very popularly used application within Maximo. Many remember it from version 7, and it still exists in 9.0 and is a valuable tool for quickly looking at your overall work list for a period of time and being able to allocate it to resources that are available down below. And it's as simple as clicking the work you want to assign and then double clicking the resource. And I'm going to show that in a second. But let's go ahead and paint the picture of what I'm going to walk you guys through today. So let's say that there was an outage caused by a storm that went through one of our local areas. And we are a utility that needs to do both a assessment of the damages as well as take action and do the repair. So that's going to be a key focus in the story we're going to go off of. And as a supervisor or dispatcher, the first thing I would do is I would open up Assignments Manager. I would begin to filter the work that needs to be completed. Maybe we do it by, let's say, the calculated priority for that work, which is typically realized from the asset record that this is associated with, or maybe it's a priority that we've listed on the work order record itself. But here I can quickly filter those work orders by priority, and you can see here it's color coded. These colors are typically defined by priority, which out of the box it's 0 to 5, but all of that is very much configurable. You can configure the colors, what filters you have. If you have a configured field that you want to add here to be able to filter on, you can sure do that as well. But this is just a really simple way that we can begin to filter the work that we want to then assign to the associated resources. And I can go through here and show you some of the other work orders that we have. Now, for this demonstration, as a supervisor, I already have a query that I have for all the outages that I want to filter this work list by. And so there's two parts to two key work orders, and you can see their individual tasks here that I want to focus on. The first is around doing an outage assessment. And then the second is doing a repair. And each of these work orders have subsequent tasks that you see here. And you can tell because it's all a part of the same work orders and you have your task list here. So let's say, for example, I wanted to allocate this work order for tree clearing to one of my resources. What I would want to do is ensure that when I'm assigning this work, that I can filter that work or even the crew. Let's actually go to crew. And I'm going to go ahead and filter crew to match this work. And so it's as simple as saying, I want to filter it based off of work. It's going to automatically create that filter for me. I click OK, and then there you go. I can now then with a double tap of my finger or this mouse that I'm using, I can go ahead and assign that work. And there you go. 2 hours has been taken off the total time. And we can see this is now allocated to our crew. One thing to highlight here, and you can see it actually updated the percent allocation for that week as well. But an important part of this scheduling too is being able to understand. Let's actually allocate another resource. Maybe it's a contractor. Let's go ahead and say contractor, filter work to match the labor. Oh, this is going to be crew actually. Let's go ahead and reset that. And that's fine. Let's go ahead and select a record that we have for electrician, and we're going to only pull up those labor resources to match this work. And there you go. One thing I may want to do here, and it's really simple within Maximo, is I can go ahead and view all of the assignments that have been allocated to this individual this week. So I can see, okay, so it looks like Joe has some work that he's doing on the 16th for that allotted time. But let's say, for example, Joe calls in, he's like, hey, I'm feeling sick. I'm not going to be available the next day. Totally fine. What we would do here is we would go ahead and say, okay, Joe's going to be sick. This is going to be all day. Let's go ahead and say for his shift, he looks at somewhere 7 to 3. This is going to be tomorrow. So let's click OK. And then as you can see here, it's automatically going to bring that up for Joe. Let me just go ahead and refresh that. So now that he's not going to be available for those 8 hours as part of that day. And it looks like there's based off of a double shift, so we may have to increase that to 16, but that's okay. So what we see here is Maximo, you have the capability of doing all of that within one interface, seeing the work, what work they're doing, being able to modify their availability quickly and easily with just a couple clicks of the button. So now that we've walked through Assignments Manager, what I want to do as part of the next step is walk you through the next application as part of scheduling within Maximo, which is Graphical Assignments. So here what I'm doing is I'm filtering based off of that storm outage schedule. And here we have a schedule that's already been created. I'm going to walk you through some of the basics for the schedule, such as how to set it up, how you can define things like the shift that we're including, the work that we want to pull into this schedule, the resources that we want to restrict the schedule to, and even doing things like rolling schedule. So here we have our schedule that can be easily created just doing the little plus button top right. But here's a schedule that we already have created. And the first thing you're going to notice right off the bat is with graphical assignments, we're kind of moving away from that tabular view and moving towards a more graphical view. And as part of the setup here, well, all you need to do is just define, all right, here's the title of the schedule. This is the name of our scenario. This is the calendar that we're going to use, whether it's a day, evening, night, or the total uh, company calendar that we have. Here's where we would define that shift if we want to do a 2-shift operations, just evening, night, day. For this schedule, we're going to do a lot of the assessments during the day so we can clearly see, for example, as part of our, you know, outage assessment, is this a downed wire? Is this a failed transformer? Is there a tree on the line? We're going to want to do this in the daytime. We're going to pull all of the work order queries that have a work type of outage because that's how we've set it up in Maximo. You can base these conditions off of really anything you want. And the best part, I didn't mention this, but the best part of this is you don't need any type of SQL querying. Maximo has, you just tell it what data that you want to bring in and it does the rest. There's no code involved. And then lastly, defining what resources, what crews that you want to bring in for this work view. So now that we've covered how to set up that schedule, let's go ahead and talk about, and actually let's bring in status. Let's bring it over here so that I can see it a little bit better. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do as a supervisor or dispatcher is I'm going to want to look at the work that we have defined for this week. Here we can see all the work that we have defined for this particular day. It's the 20th. We can actually zoom in just a little bit. And on the right-hand side, there we go. Actually, let's just zoom into this day real quick so I can give you all a better view of what this looks like. What's really important here is over on the left-hand side, we have all the work needed to be completed for the outage assessment and the repair, and along with the individual tasks. Now, this is a key part when setting up your work view. Let me go ahead and collapse this so you guys can see what's going on here. Is first we're going to want to have our outage assessment. We may want to break out our outage repair for later on or maybe a different day, but we really want to start this process off with outage assignment. So we can break this down here to show all of the different dependencies that are associated and the different tasks that we're going to need to have completed in what order in order for the work to be completed. And what you're seeing here is me just dragging and dropping. And let me actually show you the expanded view of this, what's actually happening here. But what I'm doing here is a lot of these tasks that you have may have certain dependencies, such as wanting to do a wired down investigation before a damage assessment. So what we would do here is we would schedule this work in that sequential order. Blue representing work that has been assigned correctly based off of its dependency, whereas red, if I move it back, is an error that Maximo is going to throw to us. Anything in yellow is assigned work. Anything in orange is waiting assignment. But this is a really quick and easy way just to be going through the work that needs to be completed for the here and now and allocating it based off of those tasks. So yeah, let's go ahead and save this and move over to the assignments view, where we can then move over to the graphical view, which is a very simplistic view to identify, okay, what work needs to be assigned, which is in orange, and which of those works have already been assigned, which is in green. How we do this is on the right-hand side, we have all of the different labor resources available, the work that needs to be done, and even their availability. Like Tyler, it looks like he's sick today. So let me just oh, he's on vacation. Okay, he's on vacation. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and it's as simple as this, guys. It's just as a supervisor, I can just drag and drop the unassigned work to those that are available. And I can keep into consideration as I scroll down those dependencies that we defined in the past work view. One thing to point out too is if I have multiple different scenarios, which I don't think I have for this one, I can compare and contrast different schedules. Yeah, we can go ahead and say no to this. And then lastly, I don't have the data for dispatching, but I do have this available in another video that we have. But there's also that dispatching view where then you can look at in real time, okay, how is the work being completed? Is it being completed in an optimized way? You can then allocate work to an individual based off of priority as well as their travel location. So setting their start location and understanding exactly where they need to travel and optimizing that path to get the work completed quickly and efficiently. So this is the graphical assignments view that we have in Graphical Scheduler. No, we don't need to save this. And that's just a quick view of the here and now tools that we have for scheduling in Maximo. So now that we've covered that, let's go ahead and take it to the next step where we see a lot of our planners, a lot of our maintenance supervisors wanting to be able to look across this week and future weeks in order to define those schedules. So the next application we're going to move to is Graphical Work Week. Going to go ahead and just like we did with graphical assignments, we're going to bring up our storm outage work, which has very similar criteria. We have the restricted resources, our work query. We've defined whether or not this is a rolling schedule. And this is a different field than what we had in graphical assignments, which is we're setting, okay, do we want our week to start on a Sunday, a Monday? And in this case, I wanted it to start on a Monday. So this is an important part for me. And usually this is actually defined on a much larger screen. But what's really important about graphical work week, and instead of creating these schedules on the here and now, we want to look across multiple weeks, right? You have all of those tasks and assignments that we defined prior in the graphical assignments, but now we can see it, okay, across a week's worth of availability. We can just easily drag and drop and define work for a later date. We can bring it back. That's totally okay. Uh, Over on the left-hand side, we have a list of all of those that have been assigned, waiting assignment. On the right-hand side, we have when it is scheduled for. Down below, we have our resources who are available to do the work. And lastly, their overall availability. So it's almost a combination of the two applications we walked through prior, but now we have a single view that has all four of these key capabilities right at a click of a button. One thing that's really valuable about this too is I can also adjust those assignments. So if I right click and I want to see what assignments that have been given, I can do that as well. Let's go ahead and close that out. I can also set, for example, their overall availability. So let's look at Tyler's availability. You know what? He actually got back from a vacation early, so we can go ahead and get rid of that on the work order availability. Maximo will update that in real time. And you can also define things such as, okay, so we see that Kim is out sick on Friday, and maybe she calls in and says she has training So for a partial day tomorrow, so let's double click this. We can set that training schedule. So here, let's go ahead and just assign. We can do the dot crew actually, and we can assign it to this resource. And there you go. It's automatically updated, and that 1 hour work has been updated on the right-hand side. And so that's just a quick and easy way that Maximo can hold true to the work that needs to be completed and those that can actually do the work. So very simple interface in which we can easily um, contract to see the resource availability across the crew types. We can then break it down to those resources, and it gives us a holistic view of what we need to do for that week and future weeks. Now, the last part that we're going to highlight as part of Scheduler today is our graphical scheduling application. So here, let's go ahead and click on graphical scheduling. Let's rinse and repeat our schedule. Here we have a lot of schedules open. Let's go see if we have the outage schedule. And there we go. So Graphical Scheduler is your tool for more long-range planning and project management. And this often is looking weeks, months into the future by planners and schedulers. And it provides the classic Gantt chart view that we know and love from some of the other applications to manage large volume works, their dependencies, as well as understanding our resource leveling across this project. So here, we don't need to go through this. It's almost identical to what we've seen through the other applications. Let's go ahead and look at the graphical view. Let's go ahead and modify this. So this team is where we can see for that work that we have the outage assessment as well as the outage repair. We have all of those work orders and the underlying dependencies highlighted on the right-hand side. We have the work. Down at the bottom, we have the different crafts and crews that we need to schedule this to, and the overall resource planning. Now, if we were to overplan for resources, it doesn't look like we have that now. What we would typically see is on our resource leveling, this would turn red. If the blue, which is what the work that's been allocated, oversees the availability, and looks like we got around 8 hours of availability across these days for this week, we can then modify the schedule to appropriately align this project to this resource leveling that we have here. And so it's a very similar view to what we saw before, but we can plan out work for way into the future, much farther than what we're seeing here, and being able to quickly allocate work to Reese's based off of their availability. One thing that's key here too, as we can begin to compare different scenarios, I think we do have a outage storm schedule here. So let me see if it can render that for us. And what this is going to do is allows us to do what if conditions. It's going to compare two different types of schedules that we have laid out against one another to see, allow us to understand what's going to be the most optimal model moving forward. One other thing that a lot of the other applications didn't have associated with it is a tab related to the cost and usage of this project. So across this weekly, monthly, yearly plan is where we can begin to map the estimated labor hours, the material, maybe contracted services, tools against the actuals to understand, okay, are we on track for the costs that we're spending for this project? Are we over? We can track a lot of that through here, and it's as simple as clicking this calculate cost button. Same thing for compliance, being able to understand across our planned hours, what are the actual hours that we're realizing, and being able to look at our overall compliance factor trend over time. And with that team, this really does give you kind of the high level overview of we what are some of the capabilities of Graphical Schedule. Again, we provide out of the box, especially for those who move to the new Maximo application, Maximo 9. These are tools that your supervisor, your dispatcher, your scheduler, your planners can leverage out of the box. This isn't a separate add-on that you have to download. It all comes out of the box now with Maximo that you can turn on and begin to leverage in your day-to-day to optimize performing the right work at the right time with the right resources. And these are just a couple of the tools that we leverage most often within Maximo to ensure schedule compliance and that your projects get done and quickly and efficiently as possible. So with that, team, thank you for allowing me to walk you guys through some of the basics of Maximo Scheduler today. Please leave a comment in the chat or contact me by my email. I leave that in the description of these videos. But really appreciate your time. I look forward to more videos in the future.